Everything you have been told about why engines die is backwards. We picture it the same way every time. Somebody skipped oil changes. Somebody ran it hard. Somebody drove it into the ground, and it finally gave up somewhere north of 200,000 miles. None of the engines on this list died that way. Every single one of them left the factory already broken. The defect was sitting inside the block before the first owner ever turned the key. Metal shavings in the oil passages. Bearings machined out of tolerance. Piston rings that were never going to seal. And the owner who serviced the car perfectly on schedule ended up in exactly the same place as the owner who ignored it completely. That is what makes these different from a worn-out engine. A worn-out engine is a story about a driver. These are a story about a part number. And here is the one that should bother you most. The engine with the most unresolved failures in America right this minute does not wear a badge anybody expects. It is the badge people pay extra for, precisely because they believe it will never do this. We are getting to it at number 1, and as of this month, a lot of those owners still do not know what their fix is going to be. These get worse as we go down. Number 6 is expensive. Number 1 is still an open file. Number 6, the BMW 4.4-liter twin-turbo, the engine they call the N63. The number that started the lawsuit was a quart of oil every 750 miles. Not every 7,500, 750. Here is why. BMW put the turbochargers inside the V of the engine instead of outside it. That layout saves an enormous amount of room under the hood. And it works. And it also traps heat exactly where you least want it. The complaint argued that heat soak cooked the surrounding components until the engine started drinking oil during completely normal driving. Damaged valve stems, failing hoses, leaks that made the consumption worse, which made the heat worse, which made the leaks worse. Left alone long enough, the case argued, you are not topping up anymore. You are replacing the engine. A settlement covering the 2013 through 2019 5 Series, 6 Series, 7 Series, X5 and X6. With that engine, got preliminary approval back in 2021. But here is what most videos will not tell you about this one. BMW actually paid. There was a customer care package, and dealers went through these engines, checking timing chains, injectors, vacuum pumps and vent lines, replacing what needed replacing, and doing it even on cars that were out of warranty. Which means a used one of these with a thick folder of documentation is a genuinely different car from one with no paperwork at all. Same engine, completely different risk. On this list, that makes it the mildest entry, and it still costs more to get wrong than most people's first car cost new. Which raises a question. What happens when the manufacturer decides the problem is not worth paying for? Number 5. The Ford 1.0-liter EcoBoost and its belt that lives inside the engine oil. 60,000 miles. That is the number in the lawsuit, and it is not the mileage the belt fails at. It is the mileage the warranty ends at. The design puts a rubber belt inside the engine, submerged in oil, driving the oil pump. On paper, that is elegant. It is quiet, it is compact. It is part of how a 1-liter 3-cylinder makes the power it makes. In practice, the suit alleges oil stops circulating properly, the belt sits soaking in it, and eventually it snaps. When it snaps, the engine does not cough or knock or give you a warning light. It stops. Immediately. Sometimes while you are driving. The cars are the 2018 through 2021 EcoSport, the 2016 through 2018 Focus, and the 2016 and 2017 Fiesta. These stickered somewhere between $16,000 and $20,000 new. That is the part that stings. The repair bill on a seized engine does not scale down just because the car was cheap. The honest caveat. This engine was never a volume seller in America the way it was in Europe, so your odds of running into one are lower than the internet noise suggests. And a belt replacement done before it fails is a fraction of what an engine costs. If you own one, that is not a maintenance item you defer. That is insurance. Ford is on this list twice, and the second time is worse, because the second time there is a fix and it does not cover most of the people who need it. Number 4. The Ford 1.5, 1.6, and 2.0-liter EcoBoost, and coolant getting into places coolant does not belong. The allegation is a design flaw in the block and the cylinder head that lets coolant leak into the cylinders themselves. Once it is in there, 3 things happen at once. The engine runs low on coolant, so it overheats. The heads crack, and the coolant that made it into the cylinders corrodes them and contaminates the oil. Owners reported this on cars that had barely any miles on them. The affected list is long, and it is mainstream. 2013 through 2019. Escape, 2013 through 2019. Fusion, 2015 through 2018. Edge, Lincoln MKC, and MKZ. These are not exotic cars. These are the crossovers, sitting in every school pickup line in the country. A lawsuit filed in 2025 went after Ford's response directly, arguing that installing coolant level sensors was a stopgap rather than a fix, because a sensor tells you the coolant is disappearing. It does not stop it disappearing. And here is the caveat, and this is the one to write down. Ford did extend a warranty. It covers the 1.5-liter in the 2017 through 2019 Escape and Fusion for 7 years or 84,000 miles. Read that again and notice everything it leaves out. If you have the 2-liter, you are not covered. If you have an Edge, you are not covered. If you have a 2015 Escape, you are not covered. The extension is real. It is just narrow enough that most of the engines in the complaint fall outside it. So far, every engine on this list has been a defect the manufacturer argued about. Number 3 is one they admitted to, in writing, to the federal government. Number 3. The General Motors 6.2-liter V8, the L87. 28,000. That is roughly how many of these engines had already failed before the recall came. In April of 2025, GM recalled just under 600,000 trucks and SUVs built from 2021 through 2024. Silverado, Sierra, Tahoe, Suburban, Yukon, Escalade. The stated cause was failure of the crankshaft, the connecting rod, or the engine bearings, traced back to manufacturing problems. Sediment in the oil galleries. Crankshafts finished outside of specification. The kind of thing that is invisible from the driver's seat and fatal to the engine. GM's own filing estimated about 3% of those engines actually carry the defect. Roughly 18,000 vehicles in the United States. Now here is why the story did not end there. Federal regulators have since opened an engineering analysis into L87 engines that the recall did not cover, after more than 1,100 reports of bearing failures came in from outside the recall population. And for engines that passed the dealer inspection, GM changed the oil recommendation, moving those trucks from 0W20 to the noticeably thicker 0W40. The caveat cuts both ways on this one. 3% means 97% of these trucks are fine. If you own one, the odds are genuinely on your side. And this is not a reason to panic sell. But resale value does not price odds. It prices headlines. Every owner of a 6.2 from those years took the hit on trade-in value, including the 97% whose engine was never going to fail. Number 2 is where this whole video turns around, because it is the one engine here that can make a used car safer to buy instead of riskier. Number 2. The Hyundai and Kia Theta 2. This is one of the largest engine recall campaigns in automotive history, and the root cause was contamination left behind when the engine blocks were machined. That debris circulates in the oil, wears the connecting rod bearings, and the tolerances open up until the engine knocks and then seizes. Sonata, Tucson, Santa Fe, Optima, Sportage, Sorento. Millions of cars. The first settlement was valued at $3.1 billion. Then a second one covered around 2.1 million additional vehicles, pulling in the multi-point injection version of the Theta 2 along with the 1.6 Gamma and the 2-liter new engines. And now the part almost nobody puts in a video like this. The warranty coverage that came out of that settlement runs 15 years or 150,000 miles for connecting rod bearing damage. And it transfers. It is not tied to the original buyer. It follows the car to the second owner and the third owner. Think about what that actually means on a used lot. You are looking at two cars at the same price. One is a covered Sonata with a known defect and a documented, transferable, 15-year factory backstop against that exact failure. The other is a rival with a quieter reputation, no recall, no settlement, and absolutely nothing behind it if the engine lets go at 90,000 miles. The car with the scandal might be the safer purchase. That is not a defense of Hyundai. It is what happens when a company gets forced into writing coverage that most manufacturers never offer voluntarily. Which brings us to number 1. And the reason it is number 1 is not the size of the recall. It is that the story is still unfinished. Number 1. The Toyota V35A, the 3.4-liter twin-turbo V6. 3 separate recalls. For the same underlying problem. More than 270,000 trucks and SUVs affected. Over 70,000 engines already replaced. The problem is machining debris left inside the engine during manufacturing, and what it does to the number 1 main bearing. In the federal filing, the described sequence is blunt. Debris adheres to the bearing. The engine keeps running under load. The bearing fails. And then you get knocking, rough running, a no start, or a stall. That last one is why this is a safety recall and not a warranty campaign. A stall in traffic is not an inconvenience. Regulators treat loss of drive power as a crash risk, because it is one. This is the Tundra. This is the Lexus LX and the GX. These are the vehicles people buy at a premium, specifically because they have decided they never want to think about this again. Born from invincible was the phrase. And as of the middle of this year, owners caught in the newest wave were still waiting to be told what their remedy even is. Toyota is also still building the engine, and has said that while debris may still be present in new ones, revised bearings make them less vulnerable to it. The honest caveat, and Toyota has earned this one, engines built after the bearing was redesigned in July of 2024 are not in any recall population. If you are shopping a newer truck, that redesign is a real line in the sand, and it matters. What nobody outside Toyota can tell you is whether the file is closed or whether there is a fourth wave. So look at what these 6 actually have in common. Not one of them is a story about a lazy owner. Not one of them was prevented by better oil or shorter intervals or gentler driving. Rod bearings machined wrong, swarf left in the block, a crankshaft finished out of spec, a belt designed to live in oil. These engines did not wear out. They shipped already dying, and the first owner just happened to be holding them when the clock ran out. Which is the part that matters if you are buying used. You are not inheriting somebody's driving habits. You are inheriting a part number and whatever paperwork came with it. That is why the documented BMW beats the undocumented one, why the covered Sonata beats the uncovered rival, and why the build date on a Tundra is worth more than the mileage on it. Check the VIN before you buy. Not the reputation, the VIN. I want to hear one thing in the comments, and be specific. Which engine on this list are you actually sitting on right now, and did anybody at the dealership tell you about it before you signed? That answer is more useful to the next buyer than any review. If this saved you from a purchase you were about to make, stick around. This is what we do here every week.